The Nigeria Labour Congress says it will commence a nationwide strike from Monday, May the 13th in protest of the attack on its members by thugs suspected to be loyal to the Minister of Labour, Dr. Chris Ngige. The NLC is also demanding the sack of the minister by President Muhammadu Buhari over his refusal to inaugurate the board of the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund and allegations of corruption levelled on staff of the Labour Ministry by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. The decision was announced after a Central Working Committee meeting of the NLC in Abuja.
People like Ngige are not fit to hold public office because by our labor laws, he's supposed to be the chief conciliator. And therefore, if chief conciliator should descend so low to be attacking his constituents, his social partners, is really a situation that is unwarranted and is condemnable. No excuse can be given for that. Many people have raised the issue of, oh, he's resident. No, he's a public office holder, and he's holding that office in trust. In many jurisdictions, we have protested to their residents, and in any case, we have not accessed his house. No, it was on a public street, and everybody can see that. It's our right. Even presidents have actually been picketed, and that's allowed in law. So to now hide under that certainly cannot be substantiated, and also the continual delay of these very key labor market institutions, because two are still outstanding. One is the National Labor Advisory Council. For 4 years, this board also have not been inaugurated. No reason have been given. And therefore, this has been his character. This has been his dealing with labor. And that's why we have had the worst administration in terms of managing labor. And that is why we have had crisis in almost all the sectors in industrial relation. It's most unfortunate. And we demand that Mr. President should also exit people like Ngige. And we call on government, if the issue is about corruption, let there be a high judicial panel to find out who is actually corrupt. Is it the minister or workers? Clearly, it is him that is actually corrupt. And therefore, we cannot hide under the issue of corruption and say that the board it should be delayed. The CWC resolved to embark on a national protest on Monday, May 13, 2019 in Abuja, against the brutalization of its members by Ngige and his thugs, and has accordingly directed all its members and civil society allies to commence immediate mobilization.
Joining us now to talk about this latest move by the NLC, as well as the order restraining Governor Abdullahi Ganduje from implementing the breakup of Kano Emirate, is Public Affairs Analyst Adeniyi Kunnu. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start with the NLC. What's your initial reaction to this?
Well, I think that there is no smoke without fire, or you wouldn't have fire without smoke. If you look at the crux of the matter, Chris Ngige, the Minister of Labour, would have actually constituted a board for the NSITF. The board, the last one was dissolved 4 years ago. Kokori was actually nominated by the current president. That's his superior 2 years ago, over 2 years ago. And one would have expected him to actually, go according to what is ideal, which is to constitute a board. As a matter of fact, in the course of, prodding here and there, I found out that unlike what normally happens, because the board, jointly approves whatever contract that goes in and the rest of it all, people say what they see is they find new supplies in their offices and they don't know how that came about. That tells you that that's also not according to what should be. Let us also emphasize this. Whenever you hold Labor Days across the country, whoever is the main person in terms of the minister or whoever is senior as far as the Labour Ministry is concerned represents the president. The president was in the UK when we held the Labor Day celebrations. Dr. Chris Ngige, who should have represented the president, was conspicuously and disrespectfully absent from that. Then at the same time, you'd ask me, what is it that is holding back the Labour minister from constituting a board? They're talking about corruption. Corruption, is it the person that was nominated to chair the board that is corrupt, or who? Because for the president to have actually nominated somebody, this man in question would have actually been checked proper and through before they nominated him. So it becomes something that I do not understand, and that really is a slap on the face of an administration that stands for anti-corruption not to have a board as yet. I have to say there very clearly that it is important for government to listen to what Labour is saying so we don't have another crisis on our hands. Because if you look at it, they've told him anywhere they find him, they'll picket him. And that could actually result in something we do not want at this moment.
Okay, let's talk about the protests. Do you think it's absolutely necessary, to have protested over the board nomination?
In the first place, the ministry or the particular parastatal in question falls under the auspices of what Labour gets involved in, and it's also something that is under the overseeing, as it were, of the president. So why is an appointee of government not doing that? It affects the labor circles itself. And I think it's a huge disrespect to the representatives of workers in this country, particularly for the number of years that we've waited to have a board happen. I think this thing shouldn't be. And don't forget that what affects the eyes can affect the entire body.
Absolutely.
And Labour is trying to tell the world that the NSITF is no way smaller than all government agencies or parastatals whose issues are also part of their concern. Okay. So it is not out of place for them to protest, particularly with the way the Labour minister has been handling it. Do not forget, it is the same Labour minister over a month ago or thereabouts that said we have so many doctors in the country that we're expecting some. So when a Labour minister continues to goof, a Labour minister continues to do what Ngige is doing, then it is better that they get him out. Don't forget that they talked about the health insurance scheme, and the professor, I think Professor Hassan Osulaiman, who was eventually removed, who was the general secretary of that particular health insurance scheme. When people say this man was corrupt, at first the president returned and actually reinstated him at first, but when he found out that the pressure was too much, he had to listen. So I think Labour should press on and have what is right done.
Okay, there's one of the Dr. Chris Ngige's quotes that I picked up on, and I really want us to talk about that and get your opinion on that. So he says, calling out workers on a flimsy and selfish excuse of non-inauguration of the NSIFT with Frank Kokori as the chairman did not constitute a trade dispute as contained in the Labour Act. Do you agree?
He doesn't understand one bit the definition of Labour representation.
Wow.
A board is actually a statutory composition that the president has nominations for, and once it is constituted, it works in sync with the permanent secretary, with top executives and directors of that particular agencies and ministers. I'm teaching him what he perhaps should know better as a Labour minister. So one would have expected him to understand what is statutory. So I think Dr. Chris Ngige, having made a very colossal error in talking about the medical doctors in Nigeria, has also made another colossal error in talking about what this is indeed about wrongly. The constitution of a board of the NSITF is completely within the purview of Labour. You're talking about nomination. You're talking about a board that oversees how things go in a government ministry. I think it's another colossal goof by the Minister of Labour here.
Okay, I wish I had more time to ask you more questions, but before I round up on this and before we move on to the Emirates saga, let's quickly find out from you, what your take on how this matter can be resolved in your own words. How would you say?
The first thing is to wake up on Monday and Dr. Chris Ngige says, I'm ready to constitute a board. There is no reason why you wait on the action your superior are taking for over 2 years. You are an appointee of the president, and immediately the president says, I have nominated somebody. There is absolutely no reason for you to delay the constitution of the board, because as a matter of fact, you're not appointing the person or not constituting the board prevents what the oversight responsibilities of that board, and by extension the Ministry of Parastatal or the agency of government. So I have to say here that I hope sincerely that Ngige will retrace these wrong steps, wake up on Monday morning, constitute the board with Kokori as leading that board, so that we can have a government agency running smoothly. Okay,
thank you very much. Let's quickly move on to the Emirates incident that has just recently taken place, and the latest development on that is that we've heard that Ganduje has still gone ahead, to sort of issue and declare who the emirs are. Do you not think that's actually downright rebellious?
It is cascading impunity. And it is not only associated with the APC, it is also in the PDP. Let me explain this because it's very key. In this country, there is a sheikh held the leader of the Islamic movement of Nigeria, Sheikh El-Zakzaky, well over 2 years now, by this government. Every court gone to has said, release this man. The presidency didn't release him. Sambo Dasuki went as far as the ECOWAS court for him to be released, and it was so granted, but the presidency hasn't released him. When I say it's a cascading impunity, that simply means even from the presidency, the upper echelon of power, you'd expect that there's a better understanding of how things go there, but that didn't happen. So what happens? It comes down to the state. Now, let's not forget that in the first place, if you have an emirate, in this country, the only states that actually have 2 emirates, where you have many other emirates, is Sokoto and Kano. If at all you want to dishevel, as is this case now, it is only ideal that you talk to the man who has preserved the ancestral order of a particular state for many years.
Okay.
So I think it's important to do the ideal.
Okay.
By not disobeying court orders. It's important.
What do you think now will be the implication now that he has disobeyed?
I think contempt of court has implications. They may not take him to jail now, but we can reserve judgment in that regard. And I think it's not a very good precedent for the governor of a state not to respect the law. If we talk about the independence of the judiciary, one of the areas you test the independence of the judiciary is actually in its obedience by whoever actually has the verdict in his or her favor or otherwise. And in this instance, I think it's a matter that should be looked into as importantly as possible. For instance, if you look at how they passed the bill to actually have 4 new emirates created, it has to be said that it is one of the fastest, if not the fastest. On Monday, the bill was actually sponsored. By Wednesday, we have it passed by the governor. And by Saturday, we have names out. So we're talking about somebody who indeed should know better. So I think very sincerely here that there's always a process. And if you look at it, you cannot completely separate the constitution or the creation of 4 new emirates in a place without even talking to the person who bears, you know, that rulership or leadership over the years. Okay. It's important.
All right. There's another angle to this story, and that's, you know, depleting the influence of Sanusi himself. Do you think that was the case when Ganduje decided, you know, to go about this?
You allow me to take you on a little bit of history, if time permits. Before the switch of the former governor from the APC to the PDP, let's remind ourselves that it was first in the PDP while Sanusi was still the governor of Central Bank. In February of 2014, he was relieved of his appointment. As a matter of fact, the son of the Ado Bayero, who was there.
He's one of the new.
He's one of the new. I think he's for Rano or Gaya.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember that. Now, what happened back then was that it was popular as much as Sanusi was popular, whose great-grandfather actually was the Sanusi, the first.
Yes.
He's the second. Now, what they thought was this eldest son of Ado Bayero was going to take over, but he didn't because he had the support of the past governor of Kano, who then moved to the APC. And even after he was, you know, appointed as the emir of Kano, he was actually kept in government as to prevent the protests that happened in Kano up until now. So it's more or less like things have changed. And let's also say this, that during the rerun elections, or even before that, he didn't give support to Governor Ganduje. And in fact, Ganduje lost very healthily, if I should say, in Kano. So all of these things are really political reactions to what is perceived as not being respectful, not actually considering the fact that the governor's office is superior to his. It's pure political move. Okay. And it's obviously not in favor of the people, but of course self-serving. Okay, earlier on when we were discussing, you know, I picked up on one of the things that you said, which is, you know, the manner in which, you know, the whole thing was convened, you know. So, like, do you think it was properly done? Because you said by Monday this happened, by Wednesday this happened, and, you know, like the speed in which this matter was handled. I want to say very emphatically that if in Lagos, for instance, you are to create new areas where you have traditional rulers, I believe very strongly that you will consult 3 first-class Obas in Lagos. Oba of Lagos, Obariwan Akolu, the Oba of Badagry, Aholu Meutoyi, and of course the Oba of Badagry. Those are the 3 first-class Obas in Lagos. They are top and above all others. So what you would have expected, the Emir of Kano is a first-class Emir in this country. There is no way, even if you want to do it anyhow you want to do it, there's no way you want to create new emirates in an existing emirate and you don't seek the input of the man who holds sway. It is not done. And I tell you very sincerely that the reason why it has become a subject of litigation is simply because certain lacunae have been observed, and these particular ones are going to be tested in court. I also have to say this, that anytime political leaders take the steps they take, they really are projecting some kind of non-verbal communication to the people they lead. That's,
so,
okay.
Sorry to come in. So based on one of the things that you said, you know, I'm beginning to get the feeling that this is not just rebellious. Do you not think, based on what you've said now, that this, in seeing he didn't follow the right procedure, you know, would you not say this was malicious then in some way, shape or form?
I wouldn't want to substitute your word.
Okay.
Malicious is the proper word.
Thank you.
And let me also say this at the same time, that before the elections, not the rerun in Kano, the Emir Sanusi did not show any kind of support for Ngige. He felt it wasn't competent enough. And also to add pepper to the injury was the fact that they saw him collect bribes that people have actually said the president has not spoken to up until this moment. That was verified. Let me tell you that. The BBC and other international media agencies verified that video and confirmed it to be genuine before they actually put that video out, where Ngige was stuffing dollars in his Babanriga. And I must say very clearly here that when the Sanusi that we know, who is very outspoken, even when he was the governor of Central Bank until he was suspended in on February of 2014, let us say here very categorically that he's known to always speak to the issues as well. Don't also forget that he's the same man who said that Muslims up north are the most backward when compared to other people. He kept also speaking to the issues of women equity and a lot of things. So his ideals are sophisticated, are liberal, and really very far away from the needless conservatism that we see from the region where he emanates. So it is therefore important to say that it is malicious, as you said, but we don't need such maliciousness in our politics if we must move forward.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. You've put it well in a very good way, I would say. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
We've been listening to Public Affairs Analyst Adeniyi Kunnu. Thank you very much once again.